Hello guys, John here, your host on Mgtow is Freedom. Want to get into an interesting topic, one that most men don't talk about. And I've got a website here in front of me. It's the Emotional Psychological Abuse of Men. That's right, men are abused in relationships. When I talk to men about subjects pertaining to masculine and feminine roles, we get into it. We talk about things, and they go, well, why aren't more men Mgtow? Why aren't more men single? Why don't more men know this? And I've got an answer for that. It's that men are abused. Okay? And it's not just abuse by a single woman. It's abuse by a system, the social and legal system that we have. It is abusive to us. So let's talk about ways that men are abused and by whom, and then talk about the solution. How do we step aside and get out of that? So what is emotional abuse of men, right? I'm going to read this here. It is acts, including verbal assault, that make a man feel less self-worth or dignity. Emotional abuse of men makes them feel like less of a person. Okay. So how does this come about? Yelling and screaming. Now, it used to be that, or at least we were taught, that men, we're the aggressive ones. We yell and scream. Yet here we are talking about the yelling and screaming by women at men. And I have to tell you that I have heard far more screaming out of the mouths of women than I have of men. Threaten them and try to induce fear. That's right, men are threatened. We're constantly threatened by women. We're threatened with, well, I'm going to leave you, right? I'm going to take you for all you're worth. I'm going to take the kids. I'm going to take the car. I'm going to take everything in your life. That is abuse. It is a threat, and it induces fear. It causes a man to fear. Now, in a relationship that's 5 minutes old, you can say, not interested. Or 5 days, I've had enough. Right? But when you, as a man, get into a serious relationship, women can abuse you, and they typically do. Right? They yell and scream when they don't get their way. Now, passive women or more submissive women don't scream and yell much, but I've heard them scream and yell nonetheless. Right? And certainly threats, very common. Insult and demean men. Right? On here, I hurtle insult out because I figure that if we're going to play and they're going to sling shit, right, I can sling shit back at women. Right? But I wouldn't feel this way if I haven't been told my whole life by women that I'm a pig. Right? And you're a creeper. You're a jerk. You're an asshole. Right? Every name they can think that is used to try and dominate me. It's a form of abuse in a relationship. Okay, here's a big one that this site is talking about. Social isolation. That's where we discuss on the channel. We've discussed it a lot. How you get into a relationship, and somewhere within the first 3 months, she's going to start telling you who your friends are and what you can do. Quiet, calm manipulation of circumstances in order to keep you from your friends. That is social isolation. And it goes so far as to keep you from your family so that she becomes number one in your life and you don't have any other choices. Social isolation is a form of abuse. Treating men like they're children or servants. Right? What are we? What's the common Mgtow term for men? Well, we're a woman's utility. We're their robot. They're automaton. They're servant. They're worker. We go out and make money and then come home and give it to them. Right? We are less than them. They are superior to us. Now, like everything else, they want to sling mud, I sling it back. I know who makes the money. Right? Men do. We don't do that because we're stupid. We do it because we're smart. We are capable. We're competent. So how can we be less than a woman? You know, we're good at making money. They're good at manipulating men. And that manipulation is abuse. I say manipulation a lot, but it is actually, I should be using the word abuse. Right? And then finally here, in the ways that women do it, is it's to control all the finances. This is a form of abuse. You are the man. You're the one making the money, yet they control all the finances? How is this done, right? Well, they want it, and they get it from you. And they do it by yelling and screaming and inducing fear in you and making you feel less than and socially isolating you. You know, by being insulted, right, and reduced to less than the woman. That's how she ultimately gets a hold of all the finances. The abuse that men deal with is not, it's not a minor thing. It is critical to understand as Mgtow why more men aren't Mgtow, why men are afraid to go Mgtow, why married men don't even dare thinking about it. There's ways that women lead into abuse. Right? We've talked about how they do it. Now there's specific techniques. And this abuse is very harsh. Falsely accusing or threatening to accuse a man of assault on them or their children. I've dealt with this shit personally. It's a form of abuse. Okay, it's control. Threatening to take away custody of the children. Threatening to kill themselves or others. That's really common with women. It's a form of abuse. It's a way to control. All of these are about controlling a man's behavior, controlling a man's decision. Right? They want to make men feel like he's crazy. Right? This is where the term gaslighting comes in. Right? Where they spin you in circles with stories and lies and make you feel like you're wrong and let you know that you're the crazy one, and they do this on purpose. It's called games, or being fucked with, right? Playing mind games, in other words. Right? Guilt is a huge one, right? Guilt and shame, we talk about that quite frequently. All these are forms of abuse. Right? Withholding affection. The very thing that women use to get men to go with them, to take them out, to start spending time with them, to start a relationship, to grow into a serious relationship, and ultimately to marry them, is done with affection. It is how we are abused, because that's what we want. We want affection. So it's a tool that women use against us. And finally, you know, stalking. Women who won't leave men alone, who continually try and contact them. And there's lots of ways to do it. At your work, at your home, through mail, through electronic forms of communication on the internet. Women who are stalkers will persist, and it's a form of abuse. And all of these things are an attempt to get a man to behave in a certain way that's acceptable to the woman. You know, why do I bring this up? My friend John, who lives in New York, thinks that, you know, dragging this stuff out is bad for me. For me, it kind of opens up wounds, but it also helps me heal. At the same time, I know there's men out here who are just now learning about Mgtow, and just now learning there's an option, and learning that other men have suffered these abuses that they have. You know, that's why I've done this channel, is to talk about all of these things. And the success of doing these videos comes when I receive emails and other forms of contact from men who say, you can't believe what a difference you've made in my life. By talking about whatever the subject matter was, it hit them because that was exactly what they were thinking and how they felt about it and how they dealt with it. And I know everybody who's been in one of these bad relationships has suffered under the hands of a woman and her abuse. It is not 1900 and it's not 1800. When a woman gets out of hand, you cannot put her in her place. Right? In fact, she has protection from the state above and beyond, right, anything. She can physically abuse a man as well as mentally abuse him, and there's no recourse for us. And if you try leaving them, as in a divorce, they will further abuse you by threatening to take away your children. A very powerful tool that women use to abuse men and get their way. That is, control the outcome of any given situation. When you've been abused by a woman, psychologically and emotionally abused, right, you feel like you have no other option. And when that happens, when it persists day after day and month after month, you can bet your ass that it hurts, that it affects you and it brings you down. And men, the only reason we make it through that is because we are strong mentally and powerful. And we can eventually conquer that. Not all men do, though. And those are worst case scenarios where men kill themselves or become heaps, right? Emotional heaps. They lose their jobs and their lives because of what a woman has done through these abusive techniques that I've talked about in this video. You know, this is completely the reason why Mgtow has grown to where it is. And for men to say, well, I don't know anything about Mgtow because, you know, it's just not that big of a deal, right? I'm fine. There should be more men going Mgtow if it was so cool and so smart and so perfect. Well, there is no perfect system or perfect answer. But avoiding and getting out of relationships that are abusive is critical, and more men are going that way. That is the growth of Mgtow, is to leave the abuse of relationships, because women don't know how to have relationships. And I've made a couple of videos on that. They don't know what they're doing. They just know how to manipulate. And they know they can get away with these forms of abuse. So we're talking about why men don't leave. Why are men staying in marriages? Well, there's the threats, right? There are threats. If we get a divorce, this is going to happen to you, and women will make those threats. But let's see what the website says. Why do men stay in emotionally abusive relationships? Right? He may not believe he is worthy enough to leave the relationship, or he may believe he deserves the emotional abuse. Again, this is one that I have lived firsthand. When someone tries to convince you that you deserve everything you're getting, right? All of these techniques that women use are incredibly corrosive, damaging, and hurtful to men, right? Well, how does he stay, or why does he stay in emotionally abusive relationships? Well, there's threats made by the abuser. He'll stay in it to protect the children. I know this one firsthand. They feel dependent on the abuser. This is one that comes with much more time. And it's harder to shake this idea, right? You become dependent on the abuser. You want their approval so badly, and as a man, you work so hard trying to impress them, right? You're dependent on them giving you a cookie, tossing you a bone, right? You work all day long and you get abuse for it, and you just want a little bit, right? And then they finally give you a little bit, a compliment or something you want in exchange for all of your effort and taking all of that abuse. It's extremely painful. But men become dependent on this abuse. They're not masochistic by nature, but it comes about through the ritual application of emotional abuse against men in order to mold them into what a woman wants so that she can control them. Why are more men going Mgtow? Because of the recognition of these abusive techniques by women. Why aren't more men Mgtow than there are now? because men are trapped. They are emotional prisoners